some bureau members in the green room, and also have some other bureau members, ad hoc and advisory group, and also advisory group, and also other members of CFS who are participating this meeting virtually, because this morning we have two special distinguished guest ambassadors, Gabriel Ferrero from Spain, and also ambassadors Medi Moungui from Cameroon, who are the candidate for the CFS chairpersons for the next biennium, which actually at the end of the CFS 49 on 14. Once the elections completed, we will know who is the new chairpersons, and one of them will will continue the work of the committees with support of the members, with support of the CFS Secretariat. And that's why it's very important for all of us to have an opportunity to hear from Ambassador Ferrero and also Ambassadors Moungui from Cameroon, which actually, according to the provisional agendas for today that we have circulated, the documents and also professional agenda to all of you. Provisional agenda that we have today, the first agenda item, meeting with the candidate for CFS chair 2021 to 2023. And the second agenda items are planning for CFS 49 plenary sessions. The third agenda items, we will discuss about the UN Food System Summit and CFS work. As you know that the UN Food System Summit just ended last week, and there are some issues that we need to discuss how we're going to proceed. And the last agenda item, any other business. We will now, we'll listen to the two candidates. I would like to inform two candidates that you have 15 minutes for your presentations. And then after your presentation, we will give the floor to our members to ask a question. We have at least each candidate will have 20 minutes for question and answers. And we will finish the first segment of today's meeting by 10:30. And I would like to inform you as well, as you know, that the election will be organized in the mornings on 14th of October. And that's why today, before we finish the first segment of the meeting, we also we have invited FAO management to give us a brief about the elections. At least you know how the election in terms of modalities, and also when you have to enter to the building, how to do, and also in terms of the voting as well. During the meetings, during the question and answers sessions, if the members in green room would like to raise any question, please raise your flag. And also if the members who join us virtually, please let's say raise your hand, and also some of you may put your question in the chat box that we will also take your question to ask our candidate. And when after the first segment of the meeting with the candidate, the bureau members and alternate will continue with the regular bureau meeting immediately with the different Zoom link that you have received. And I would like to inform you that the videos of the meeting with the two candidates this morning will be posted on the CFS website. For those who are not able to join the meeting this morning, you can have an opportunity to listen to our candidate later. And also for the bureau, for the second segment after 10:30, is the meeting is just only for the bureau and alternate members. And the second part of the meetings will be recorded for Secretariat note only. Now, I would like to open the floor to our two candidates. I will start first with Ambassadors Gabriel Ferrero from Spain. And as I mentioned earlier, you have 15 minutes, and I will stop you after 15 minutes. Thank you very much. The floor is yours, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair, Excellencies, members of the Bureau and the Advisory Committee, and also members of the committee that are following this meeting in the video. My fellow candidate, Monsieur Medi Moungui, Excellency, good morning, everyone. And dear Chair, allow me first to thank you so much for helping us to have this opportunity of meeting in person after such a difficult times. Thanks also to FAO, who made this possible. It is a true honor to be here and have the opportunity to share the idea of our candidature from Spain, some of our understanding of the challenges, the proposals we would like to put forward if elected. Well, before going into substance, I would like to thank all those of you that generously have shared part of your time during these last weeks and months, and will be doing so in the coming weeks, giving me the opportunity to listen to your views and your ideas about the future of the CFS. I have held almost 100 conversations with you that helped us to shape the profile of our candidacy, reaffirmed Spain on the idea of moving forward with our proposals, and most importantly, helped me to understand much better your points of view, your ideas, your concerns, and helped me indeed to shape the vision I would propose as a candidate, a vision that has been shared, I understand, during these last 2 weeks through the written statement that was shared with the members of the committee. Well, I will start first elaborating a bit on why Spain has stepped up with this candidacy, with these characteristics, and I will also elaborate a bit on the ideas of how this candidacy would develop. And I would like to use or to refer to some of the words that my president, the president of my government, Pedro Sánchez, gave during his address at the Food System Summit last week. So I'd like to quote the following words, a start quote. "We are committed to reinforce the global governance of food systems, convinced of the transformative potential of a CFS adapted to the new challenges Spain has presented its candidacy to its chairmanship for the next 2 years." I end quote. So first, sharing with everyone and with the national community the deep concern about the situation on food and nutrition security after the COVID-19 pandemic, but also we agree that before the COVID pandemic, we were not on track at all, especially on SDG 2. But also second, understanding the relevance of the moment, historical moment we're living in as a result of the pandemic, but also seizing the opportunities that the pandemic itself has posed, and also the momentum given by the Food System Summit to do a big push for the Decade of Action on the 2030 agenda through working on SDG 2 and food systems to make impact across the other SDGs on our climate commitments, on biodiversity, diversification, etc. Sharing with all of you what we have heard as a sense of urgency to act now, and also realizing that the CFS is itself, we are at a crossroads, and that we will need to do our best and put the best of our capacities to keep the committee as being the essential body it is, and the essential intergovernmental platform it has been called by the Secretary General on his statement following the Food System Summit. Well, these are the reasons why the Council of Ministers in my country, following the initiative by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Alvarez, and the Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries, Mr. Planas, decided to appoint an ambassador at large and offer his time and his capacities to the CFS chairmanship, if elected, following this appointment. And this is why the Minister asked me to step aside from my responsibilities as Director General for Global Sustainable Development Policies at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And he asked me to bring my previous trajectory, experience, and capacity both within our government in this senior position, but also within the United Nations in the previous years, serving at the Executive Office of the Secretary General, Ban Ki-moon, and also my experience in the ground at the service of the committee if elected. Well, after this careful consideration by the ministers of the moment we are witnessing and of the challenges ahead, is why my government decided to propose a candidacy that is slightly different on its model if compared with the past, with the traditional, the trajectory in several ways. Well, first is offering or proposing a candidate that is an ambassador at large instead of a PR or a deputy PR in Rome, and that would come from capital if elected. And this is in the hope of giving this very strong message of making during these next 2 years that we understand are critical for food security and for the committee, making a candidate or offering a candidate that ensures the full independence from our bilateral agenda or of our representation to the Rome-based agencies, but also with a full-time dedication so that we can make the most of the role of the chair, following the excellent leadership and example from the chair, the current chair, Tanwat, and the previous chairs, but devoting the full time, all the efforts to the chairmanship. The ministers also wanted to look for a profile that combined, obviously, wide experience on the topic and in Rome and in the CFS, but also that it's well equipped from minute one with the already established relationships with the other parts of the UN system, very especially with New York, and also other intergovernmental fora such as the G20 or the IFIs or others. Well, of course, I'm honored by the mission the minister asked me, and I do hope that this experience that I have accumulated in the past since before the reform of the committee and afterwards within the United Nations system, accompanying the committee on growing up after the reform, can be brought to the service to your service and the service of the committee, performing as a chair in a way that I hope to contribute to 3 priorities. Well, first, of course, is fulfilling successfully the agreed multi-year program of work, which is our shared program of work, obviously, and such an important issues such as gender equality, on data, on youth, or inequalities, and food and nutrition security, food security and nutrition, that has been already underscored during the last years as topics that are absolutely critical and relevant for food security and food systems, even during the summit. But for these coming years, this may not be enough. And I do hope to have to address as my second priority, facing the challenges that we all know the committee has. We had an evaluation some years ago, in 2017. We are doing efforts to improve, but we will need to speed up the improvement of the way we function, not least and very importantly, the way in which the committee is linked and connected with our own capitals, but also some challenges related to structural issues within the committee, related to the way in which we address negotiations and the workload this represents to many of the missions here in Rome and in capitals and others. To put it simple, I think this is also something the Deputy Secretary General expressed when she said in the 3rd floor at the closure of the pre-summit that the world needed a more responsive CFS for exercising this essential role that the summit finally recognized for the committee as serving as the intergovernmental and more inclusive fora for food and nutrition security, and hence for well-functioning food systems. And for me, all this also means what would be my 3rd priority, which is consolidating the Committee on World Food Security as the reference, as the clear center of gravity of all the global efforts, of all this ecosystem, if we want to put it that way, and use more biological language, this ecosystem of institutions that globally interact for making food systems deliver on food security and nutrition for all and on the right to food, make the CFS serve as this platform that is the reference globally to connect the efforts of our countries, the efforts of our stakeholders and our actors for achieving our common goals. And for me, this means focusing on 5 cross-cutting levers, or mobilizing 5 cross-cutting levers of change. These are 5 ideas that for me, the first one is interconnectedness of the committee. We need to make the CFS even more interconnected with the rest of intergovernmental bodies that interact on critical issues related to food security and nutrition, not least with the World Health Assembly or the World Environmental Assembly, the Conference of the Parties of the Rio Conventions, etc. Meaning better interlinked with our peer bodies in the United Nations system and United Nations family, that we all address issues that very strongly impact and interact with our mission of making the right to food and zero hunger a reality. The second lever is impact. And for me, this means not only continue on our efforts to bring the CFS policy agreements to our own policies at the country level and to inspire our strategies. And of course, we need to do much better on that. But it also means the other way around, making the CFS serve also as a platform bottom-up where our countries can come here, serve this platform as a way of sharing our efforts, our strategies, our challenges, our plans, our pathways, depending on the way in which every one of us calls our country-level, country-owned efforts, in a way that we learn from each other, that we can share our efforts and maybe serve in a similar way than the voluntary national reviews are serving at the high-level political forum for the follow-up of the whole of the 2030 agenda, obviously on a voluntary basis. The third idea would be inclusiveness. And inclusiveness, which is one of the core values of our committee, means first and foremost, making sure that no country is left behind. In our negotiations, in their engagement or with the committee, and no country that is willing to participate in the committee is not allowed to do that due to the lack of capacity or to a lack of resources here in Rome, in the missions or in capitals. And of course, inclusiveness also means to improve the way in which the mechanisms, our very much valued mechanisms, work, and also opening the scope of inclusiveness to other critical actors that maybe 10 years ago were not so apparent, but now are absolutely relevant for making our mission a reality. And this has to do with, for instance, local authorities or parliamentarians or the universities as such, as an actor, and others. The fourth of this lever would be innovation. And it's not just about think and acting out of the box, it's also about focusing on the way in which scientific advances and knowledge, in a more broad sense, engages with our policy work. And this obviously refers to the high-level panel of experts and the way in which, after the debates around the summit, is reinforced and is positioned in this global, also a global ecosystem of knowledge related to food security and nutrition, or on issues related to food security and nutrition, and make the high-level panel of experts prominently and more reinforcedly making service to its function. And finally, the 5 lever of change would be making the CFS serve also as a platform with a more strategic steer, connect between initiatives that the multiple stakeholders, countries, regions, EU and agencies are trying to put together or have been putting together during the last years. We have been doing so through the side events, especially side events spaces, but we may do better with a more strategic steer to put them all together. So finally, dear colleagues, well, Spain is committed with this committee. I think this is out of doubt. It has been clear during these last 2 years with our engagement in the Bureau, not just contributing financially. And this candidacy is an honest contribution of Spain to reinforce the committee at a moment we believe critical for the committee itself and for the situation on food and nutrition security. And if elected, I will put no doubt, all my experience humbly and all my capacity I can, and the full of my time at your service as a facilitator of this of the committee at this critical juncture. If elected, I will count, of course, with all of you, as I've been doing, preparing these ideas for the candidacy, and very especially with Mr. Medi and the members of the African group in our collective effort. So I hope to have your trust, your support, and I humbly ask you also for your support. Thank you very much indeed for this, this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Gabriel Ferrero from Spain, for your presentations. Next, I would like to invite Ambassadors Medi Moungui from Cameroon to present your visions and also to talk with the members of our stakeholders. You have 15 minutes, sir. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairperson. And then we are really very appreciative to this bureau to have accepted that we should participate to share our views on what we think the CFS should look like in 2 years' time. Well, let me first of all, after thanking everybody for being here, say that this is a particular election because I understand from the very beginning why we were to come up with a candidate as Cameroon. The first thing that I would like to share is that when we look at the rotation system which is being put in place, we look at it as a group, and we felt this is the turn of Africa to put up a candidate. In principle, we have witnessed all the elections so far. Most of them were by acclamation. And we were sure that this time again, if a candidate should come from Africa, all the candidates, or if candidates should come from Africa, from Africa, all should be African candidates. And there we will discuss. But unfortunately, we were surprised. So we were a little bit embarrassed whether we should put up a candidate or not. But Cameroon strongly believes that we needed to support this interest in the CFS by putting up a candidature. In our processes, it's a long process for a candidate to be nominated, because the only person to nominate a candidate is the head of state in Cameroon. So it has to go from the Minister of Agriculture and the Minister of Foreign Affairs to the Presidency of the Republic to get the authorization of the President to put up my name to be part of this. So that's the process so far. And then we have all the letters, including the high-level decision of the head of state for this candidature. So it's not just a simple candidate which comes from the permanent representation here. It's at the highest level of the state. And that's been considered. We will really plead that we look at it, because when we went to the Africa group, the entire Africa group said, okay, so if there is one candidate, let us support or go ahead with that candidate instead of bringing up many more candidates. So we couldn't accept having other candidates in Africa. That's why my name is today considered, or the Cameroon candidature is considered as African candidature. And this, you have been approached by the chair of the Africa group to that effect, many of you. Now, I have, globally, I have, as a personal view, I have shared my CV. All of you have seen it, possibly, if not. But I would like to say that my name is Medi Moungui, as is written here. And then I am a diplomat for the past more or less 20 years, but my training is agricultural economist. That's what I did in my entire life, to develop program and project. But within CFS, I've been in CFS activities since 2002. I have witnessed all the transformations of the CFS. I have supported candidates to chair the CFS, and we know everything that was within every candidature of the CFS. And I can assure you that I was really very highly motivated, because I know almost all the candidates who came even after the reform. And I was very, very motivated to see that we can do and bring our personal touch as the chair in the CFS chairmanship. And that's, first of all, my main motivation, because I think you've seen it in my CV. Now, the second thing I would like to say is that I have also shared my vision. And the vision, that is also the vision of how Cameroon intends to look at the CFS in the next 2 years. And you've seen that vision. What I would like to emphasize, first of all, is that we have tried to develop a slogan for this, because after looking at how CFS has been operating for the past 4, 5, 6, 7 years, we have developed a slogan, which I can share today with you, which is CFS inclusiveness revived. Let's make it happen. CFS inclusiveness revived. Let's make it happen. Because we have seen so many things happening within the CFS that, the key principle of inclusiveness is at stake. Because that principle is at stake, we will invest a lot to make sure that every stakeholder has a voice. That's why we are calling back to the revival of the inclusiveness. And we are sure that CFS is more than relevant than ever. Why? Because all the products of CFS are already more or less in place. The high-level panel of experts is certainly producing a 16 report, and 16 reports is not since the reform. It's a big bunch of work. That's a big work that has been performed by the high-level panel of experts, and we need to capitalize on that and take that down to the level of the countries. And that's my perspective. But I want to tell you that 2 years really is too short for a vision that may help in the future, probably 5, 6, 7 years, to implement what we have, our ideas. But we will try in as much as possible to get things done within these 2 years with regard to this contribution to the revival of the inclusiveness. I would like to mention 2 things that are today very important within the CFS and its relevance. The products are there. The MIPO 2020-2023 is still valid. The global strategic framework is, as we say, a living document, which we can continue to work on. But there are new developments that we should consider. And Those two big new developments, I don't talk of, I will not talk of about the climate change and so on. There are two key issues that are putting the work of food security and nutrition at jeopardy. It's the COVID-19. That's the first thing that we have to consider. What will be the impact of the COVID-19 in the work of CFS? We have had the report of the high-level panel of interim issue paper that was produced in March 2020, which says, and I quote, "The broader economic crisis that is emerging because of the COVID-19 crisis poses enormous challenges for food security and nutrition globally." And obviously, this is bringing an additional challenge in the implementation of the CFS MIPO 2020-2023. The second thing that we have to bring up is the United Nations Food System Summit, which just ended. Definitely, the outcomes should be used by the CFS. And in my perspective, and this is what probably we will try to seek the views of the membership, is to try to see whether how CFS can be of big or can bring contribution to the implementation of some of the outcomes of the UNFSS. I don't know, probably you will help me if I am elected, and if you give me your confidence. We should start by having really, I don't know if the chair will allow it, to have probably a very quick extraordinary session of the CFS to see if we cannot incorporate what is coming from the UNFSS within the global framework and the MIPO. This is key because, we have an issue of resources within CFS. And because we have this issue of resources, we need to set priorities considering emerging issues. And definitely, the CFS has to undergo probably some reforms to that effect. And we will have to probably, I will bring the membership, if I'm elected, to that global reflection on what could be done for the CFS to move forward as a renovated instrument in food security and nutrition. But I have to tell you frankly that I personally believe in the general principles that are embedded in the CFS modus operandi, including those that were outlined in the CFS reform report. And those elements of inclusiveness, engagement, transparency, consensus, cooperation, partnership, promoting human rights, global ownership and responsibility, global applications, these are things that I consider really key. And that have motivated me to put up the candidature. As I said before, I am fully committed to the implementation of the MIPO 2020-2023, but we will engage the membership, if we are elected, in how to discuss that. I said it, if what should be the next priorities for the CFS. And you know perfectly that a chair will never replace the high-level panel of experts. It will never replace the secretary. And we have to play the role of a chair in being very much balanced in the conduction of the discussions. Because I've witnessed so many discussions within the CFS, including the guideline for food security and nutrition that we just adopted and so on. It was so difficult. And sometimes I didn't play the role in the past when we were negotiating the guideline for the right to food. I was a facilitator at one point of the Friends of the Chair. It was not easy. And we have to know what people think and how to come to bring together the ideas that come from every corner. And that's important for the chair. And I will invest here, if I'm elected, much of my time to look into that. So this is globally my vision: work as a chair and give the work of the secretary to the secretary, but work in tandem with the secretary to make sure that we have the right things done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassadors Medi Moungui from Cameroon. Next, I will give the floor for question and answers. If you allow me, I would like to break the ice for this morning and have the first question to the two candidates. Given the state of world food security and nutrition, along with related issues such as health and environmental conditions, and also, as you mentioned, about the outcome of the UN Food System Summit. In your view, what are the key priorities for the CFS in the next 2 years if you are elected, and how would you advance progress on those priorities? May I start from our Ambassador Ferrero, followed by Ambassador Moungui, and then I give the floor to the members and others. Yeah, please. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for this question. Well, I think I expressed the key priorities during my words. Well, of course, and I re-emphasize this, of course, the key priority is the multi-year program of work that is already in place and agreed, and there are, as I emphasized, very important issues to be discussed on critical topics on gender, youth, etc. So this is the first priority. But as it's also said, I think that it is of crucial importance to introduce also some cross-cutting ideas that relates to engaging with the rest of the UN intergovernmental bodies. And after the Food System Summit, especially, I think it is a good scope for reinforcing these interlinkages with the chairs of the other intergovernmental bodies you refer to as sectors or as topics, and that can be identified, that are peers of the committee. It is a good scope for improving the work from the secretariats of the different intergovernmental bodies as well, to contrast agendas, to make sure that the critical issues are being negotiated at the right place while being taken into account by the other intergovernmental bodies, etc. And second, and I have just 1 more minute, so I will try to keep it brief. I think it's critical to engage with country level and make the CFS incisive, impactful in the ground. And this is a two-way street, as I mentioned. I would propose to try to make the CFS a kind of, if I may, colloquially, an HLPF for food security and nutrition that is very well linked with the high-level political forum, also in terms of the space provided to member states to voluntarily, of course, share their strategies, their experiences, and reinforce with our country's leadership the input to the high-level political forum, not just in the form of a report by the chair of the committee, but also in a stronger link of our goals on food security, nutrition, and food systems with our overall efforts in our countries to achieve the 2030 agenda, climate, NCDs, etc. And this very well linked with the high-level political forum. I don't have more time, but I would like to. I'd like to.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your answers, Ambassador Moungui, please.
Very quickly, Mr. Chairperson, thank you for that question. There are 3 things that I would like to say here. The first one is that We have a product of the HLP on the table. That's the key priority. We have to discuss that. And that's the one on promoting youth engagement and employment in agriculture and food system. Now, if we have to integrate the new development, COVID-19, and as I said, mentioned UNF Food System Summit, then we have to engage all the members in the discussion for priorities. The chair does not set priorities. The chair will make some suggestion on how he intends to work with the membership, and it's the membership to discuss on what will be the priority. And that discussion will bring that discussion on the table for all of us to say what will be the priority. Of course, I have my own vision that, the big problem today is take the product, the CFS product in countries. So that's an idea. It's only my idea, but members have to discuss that. And the last thing that the third thing that I wanted to say about this is, as I said earlier, again, engage the members to see whether we can have a special session or extraordinary session of the CFS to discuss these emerging issues and how to deal with those. These are the three things that I will keep as a priority. As I said, 2 years is not 10 years. 2 years is too short to make an impact. And if, as a chair, we want to make an impact, we must go straight to the point with the membership. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ambassador Medi Moungui. Next, I give the floor to Argentina, please. Argentina.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Chair. And first, I would like to thank Mr. Ferrero and Mr. Moungui for participating in this special meeting and for permitting CFS members and stakeholders to exchange views with them. So again, let me say that we enormously appreciate information provided in the written statement, since this allows us to identify, at least in general terms, let's say, the priorities for the next CFS. So we wish both candidates the best of luck in the election. You are excellent options, and that shows the importance of CFS. So first, a couple of questions for Mr. Ferrero. I would like to touch upon the issue around the rotational basis of the presidency election. Although we agree on the fact that this principle does not represent a written rule, is still an axis to guarantee inclusivity and transparency, and those values from our perspective must be protected. So bear in mind the previous chairmanships. We are a little bit confused here, and perhaps we are wrong, but we understood that this period was reserved for the African region. However, your country has submitted your candidacy. So we would like to know your position in this regard. And this point leads me to my second one. And this is not a chicanery, not at all. But we would like to know if you're running as a Spanish candidate or as an European one. We would need clarification on that, since it would help us to understand the whole nature of your nomination. Then in your statement, in your written statement, you mentioned the necessity of building on the momentum created by the Food System Summit in order to strengthen and reinforce the work of CFS, while affirming that CFS must respect the limit of its mandate. Somehow this will be a challenge, since Food System Summit not only address a massive number of topics that go far beyond CFS mandate, but for some countries the summit let's say, does not embody the spirit of transparency and inclusivity that characterize CFS. And at the same time, you underpin the need to advance phase 2 of the 2009 reform. So, according to your opinion, how all these elements could be combined or articulated without creating a huge clash among them? And with your indulgence, Chair, I would like to address 2 questions to Mr. Moungui. In your written statement, you address the additional challenge to the current MIPO and the importance of establishing, I think, a realistic and achievable burden of work for the committee. So in this sense, what will be your vision to finalize the current program of activities and the design of the coming ones? And the last one, and I'm finalizing here, Chair. We all know that there is a current debate on whether CFS should align itself with the potential outcome of the Food System Summit and its envisaged coalition, or continue working on its mandate, improving its efficiency and showcasing the quality of its products. And at the same time, many countries believe that if there are outcomes, those results must be examined by FAO governing bodies before thinking about its implementation. So, what would be your opinion in this regard? Thank you very much, Chair. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Argentina. I give the floor to Ambassador Ferrero for 2 minutes, and then Ambassador Moungui for 2 minutes as well. And if you want to give any additional written answers, you can do it later as well. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Although it has been 3 questions, complex questions in one, so I may need more than 2 minutes. Well, first of all, about the rotational basis. Maybe to be quite honest, I mean, we don't think that Spain is forcing or putting at question the rotation principle, because it is a principle. It's not a prescribed set or sequence of countries. This is our understanding. The proposal actually of our candidacy, in the way in which it has been framed, started after a bureau meeting when, for the first time, the next presidency period was put over the table by the secretary and the chair, and it was a reference already to the fact that in the absence of a South Pacific or North American candidate, it could be the time, and it was said, European or African country. This is our understanding as well, that it is not a strict rotation from 2009. But of course, it is a principle. It is a principle of keeping rolling in a sufficient intensity an alternation in the sequence of candidacies. We wouldn't have continued with our project if this would have been so. We kept many conversations also actually with many African countries as well, and of course of the other regions before the 10th of August when we put forward the candidates formally. And this came also after a formal consultation, I understand, Chair, from the Bureau to the FAO legal services. But I think this should be addressed more probably by the Secretary or by you, Chair, in detail. Then on the second question, it's about, am I a Spanish candidate or a European well, this is a tricky question, but it's very clear. This is a candidacy of Spain. It is Spain that has proposed this idea of reinforcing the chairmanship with more resources during this next period. And of course, Spain is a country of the European Union and from the European Regional Group. And we hope to have the whole of the support and of the European Union. And we are a European candidate, but this is a Spanish candidature that hopes to have the support of the European group as a whole. And then finally, and just for a minute, Chair, if I may, well, indeed, yes, I truly believe that the CFS needs to stick to its mandate to fulfill its mission. It's not that the Chair is putting priorities that or is not empowered or entitled to set up a vision for the committee. I think it is a function of our chair to set up a vision, and of course, building on the agreed program of work. The vision I'm proposing is not meaning that I don't, or that I dismiss the importance of my program, my multi-year program of work. On the contrary. And the idea, responding to Guillermo, is that I think it is not jumping into others' mandate, but it is about strengthening the relationships between the Intergovernmental Forum to make the systems, the thinking work also between the arenas in which critical issues that are not part of the negotiating mandate of the CFS, but are very important for the committee, are well connected, and the CFS is well heard or better heard in those arenas.
Yep. Thank you very much, Mr. Ferrero. I need to give the floor to Mr. Moungui, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Argentina, for those two questions that I think I addressed them when I was in my initial development, but I can come back to it because, as I said, we have agreed on a MIPO till 2023, but we have at hand a product of the high-level panel of experts. We must make use of that product, which is important. So the first key priority that we're going to, we followed the 2022, more or less, program of MIPO element, discussing the promoting youth engagement and employment in agriculture and food systems. We are going to do that as a priority. Now, how to adjust the rest, I believe that taking into consideration the resources problem, we need to bring all the membership to agree on an adjusted program of work, taking into consideration new development. The other one is, and I said, this relates directly to the outcome of the Food System Summit. And that will be, CFS has a will have a very big role to play to put in place or to implement the outcomes of the Food System Summit, no doubt. So the membership should work together, and we will bring issues before the membership, our thinking, to make sure that these are embedded in a revised program of work. And we intend to have a revised program of work. Having discussed the last one, being part of the discussion of the last program of work, and I knowing perfectly how difficult it was to agree, we can only say, okay, let's have it discussed with the membership. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I give the floor to Germany, please, for your question. Yep.
Thank you very much.
Germany, please.
Thank you. Can you
we cannot hear you, Seke.
Can you hear me?
Yep, okay, yep, please, go ahead.
Okay, thank you for giving us the floor. Hello to everybody on the call today, and thank you for setting up this meeting, which is very much appreciated. I also want to express our gratitude to the two candidates for taking the time and joining us today. We believe the CFS is at a crucial stage, and Germany attaches great importance to a strong CFS. The election of the new CFS chair in October will have a significant importance, at least for the medium-term future of the CFS, particularly in view that the world is at risk of not achieving the SDGs by 2030. We are concerned about the current situation and see all actors, both governmental and non-governmental, responsible. For Germany, the following appear to be particularly central to the support of the 2030 agenda by the CFS and the functioning of the CFS itself, bringing together all actors involved, strengthening the cooperation between CFS and the RBAs, and a better implementation of the excellent CFS products. In this context, we would be interested to hear about the candidates' plans to make progress on these issues, especially in terms of bringing together all the CFS actors involved. Thank you very much, and over to you.
Thank you very much. Now I give the floor to Ambassador Moungui, followed by Ambassador Ferrero, please. 2 minutes.
Thank you, Germany, for your comment. I think they are well taken, because the interest of Germany to see that we are achieving the Sustainable Development Agenda, and because we are only 9 years to 2030, it's important. And as I said from the very beginning, our slogan says it all. CFS inclusiveness revived. Let's make it happen. And as you said yourself, we want to involve all actors, all stakeholders, to be part of the process globally. And that's why we want to revive this inclusiveness. It is important. And our key element is that all the stakeholders, the RBAs, because they are part of the solution, the civil society, the private sector, member states, academia, research institution, and so on, all should have their voice. And we make sure that we facilitate that in the process. And we are also very keen in seeing that the SDGs, are put back on track. That the summit will come, has discussed the SDG, how to go beyond that. And we want to make sure that we discuss it. All the membership are part of that discussion, which we will facilitate. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Next, Ambassador Ferrero, please.
Thank you, Chair, and I'll try to be brief on such an important issue raised by Germany about how to make the most of our inclusive nature, and I hope that that's not for me, Chair. Well, there's a lot going on outside the Rome, these doors outside Rome. At the country level, we are witnessing, and probably one of the nicest contributions of this Food System Summit has been to give visibility to all that is going on in our countries, in dialogue from our governments at all levels, central, subnational, local levels, and also with stakeholders in our countries. So first, also a way to bring together the voices of the different stakeholders is also by serving the CFS better as a platform for countries to share our own efforts at the country level. And as I said, this is mirroring what is happening at the high-level political forum with a very good and tracked success that brings together different actors that are interacting at the country level to the global level. But of course, here in Rome and at the CFS, we have to improve also the functioning of the mechanisms. Well, first we need to rebuild the trust after all these 2 difficult years with the pandemic and with the process of the Food System Summit that has been also controversial. We have to rebuild trust. We have to encourage to think through how to better improve the functioning of the mechanisms and their interaction with the membership meaning the member states of the committee. And also, as I mentioned, trying to bring as much as possible these very key constituencies and actors, maybe in a more innovative way, to the advisory committee observers or members. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for your answers. I would like to inform you that because we have a time constraints, but anyway, we would like to finish all the questions and also the requests from the floor. I would like to close the request right now. I would like to inform you that next I will give the floor to Slovenia, followed by India, and then Poland and Costa Rica. And after that, I give the floor to CSM and PSM. Next, I give the floor to Slovenia, please, for your questions. Yep.
Good morning, and thank you, Chair, for giving me the floor. Firstly, I would like to thank and congratulate both candidates for their excellent presentations. Slovenia, as the presidency of the Council of the EU, would like to inform the CFS Bureau that last week we had the pleasure to welcome Ambassador Ferrero as a guest at the video conference of the Council's Working Party on International Food and Agricultural Questions. Ambassador Ferrero presented his candidature and had a very good exchange with the members of the Working Party. The representatives of the EU member states in the Working Party very much welcomed Ambassador Ferrero's intention to dedicate 100% of his time to the CFS at a challenging time where the CFS will have to play its full role in the follow-up of the Food System Summit. They also welcome Ambassador Ferrero's very relevant experience working on matters of food security, which are directly related to the CFS. His strong links with UN food security networks in New York, and his commitment to work hard and liaise with all stakeholders to ensure that the multi-stakeholder approach of the CFS is strengthened. In concluding the discussion at the Council's Working Party last week, the Slovenian presidency noted with great satisfaction the strong and broad support expressed by delegations for Ambassador Ferrero's candidature. The candidature of Ambassador Ferrero for the CFS chair will also be a point on the agenda of the next session of the Agriculture and Fisheries Councils in Brussels, scheduled for 11th October, where we expect that the EU agriculture ministers will express their strong support at the highest political level for Ambassador Ferrero's candidature. Thank you.
Okay, I think there's no question from Slovenia. Next, I give the floor to India, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, for giving me the floor. And I would also like to thank both Ambassador Gabriel and Ambassador Medi for their excellent presentations. I have very brief two questions, very brief. Number one is, CFS has been preparing the guidelines and products for the last so many years. You yourself in every meeting used to show the booklets and see that if it is not implemented, it is of no use. So I would like to ask both the candidates how these guidelines, these guidelines have been prepared with so much of effort, so much of negotiation, so much of time, and it is prepared. But if it is not implemented, there is of no use. So how to get it implemented, number one, and as a CFS body, how it will be monitored, the implementation will be monitored, that is number one. And another very brief question is regarding, so CFS, there are many bodies, many committees, commissions, coalitions, all these things are there. How to integrate all these things to achieve the food security? As a CFS body, there are again parallel bodies are competing. You cannot say competing, but there are overlapping organizations, commissions, committees. So how to, make its relevance to achieve the 2030 agenda? Thank you so much, Chair. Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, India, for your question. Next, I give the floor to Ambassador Ferrero, followed by Ambassador Moungui, please. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Well, thank you, India, for raising these important questions. Well, about implementation or the impact, I would say impact of the CFS work here in Rome. Well, it is one of them, it's not just for me, I think it's in the reform document. It is also a concern I have heard from all of you during our conversations. It was raised by the evaluation some years ago. Indeed, about the issue of how the CFS products are being useful or not, I would say impactful or not in the ground is one of the core challenges. I emphasized that during my presentation. So what would I say? Well, I mean, first is we need to clarify to the overall community across and above and beyond these walls that it's not about implementing the guidelines or the policy recommendations. Well, first, it's the policy recommendations inspire, orient, can be observed, but not exactly implemented. But we need to very honestly, first and foremost, recognize that it is our government and it's my country's, as well as others, problem that we are not being able to bring our ministers of agriculture and other line ministers, not just agriculture, to know and to recognize the potential of the CFS products. But how to do more? Well, of course, we have all relied on the Rome-based agencies for their leadership on carrying over the CFS products in the ground. But as I think that it would be worth exploring to make this stronger link from the bottom up, from countries coming to the CFS to share their experiences, and maybe through that incentive, offering more proactively the CFS products to be used during those reviews that comes from capital to Rome. And I think that this could be also a useful way of working. If we make use of the full potential in the places where there are resident coordinators of the UN of the Food System Summit's results, then we can make a difference also in these countries, not just through their own-based agencies, of course, under the leadership, but also with the whole of the UN system. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador Moungui, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, India, for that important question. That brings me to disclose something that I was keeping within myself. But I can, because you asked that question, I will probably translate my ideas to you. This is something that I intend to discuss if I'm elected. Sure, of course. I intend to discuss with the heads of RBAs if there could not be a possibility of developing, for example, as a basis for discussion, some kind of forum in country to discuss CFS products and finance it. This is something that I intend to do if at all I'm elected, because implementation in the ground, that's what counts. It could come probably as an element of probably a trial. We may select a few countries and so on and start with. But this is what I didn't want to disclose it now because it was still built within me. But since you asked the question, this is what I intend to do. And I told you to integrate the UN food system, we have ideas to bring the global membership into work. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you very much, ambassadors. Next round, I will combine three other questions from Poland, Costa Rica, and also European Union, and then I let our candidate to answer a question from three countries at the same time, and I give you more time, maybe 5 minutes. And then the second round, to close this discussion, I give the floor to CSM and PSM. First, I give the floor to Poland first, and then followed by Costa Rica, and then EU. Poland, please. Oh, no, sorry. Poland,
thank
please.
you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the interesting presentations. Thank you for the possibility of meeting with the candidates. On behalf of the European Regional Group Chair, Iwona Krzeszewska, I would like to inform you that the ERG Group fully supports the candidacy of the Ambassador Gabriel Ferrero for the position of CFS Chairman. Thank you, and over to you.
Poland next, Costa Rica, followed by EU, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. President and friend Danawati. Thank you both candidates for the rich presentations also. My question to both candidates, it's one specific matter that is very important for Costa Rica. And I would like to know, if elected, what will be the enrollment and support or CFS with the family farming and specific with the decade of the family farming? Thank you.
In Union, please.
Thank you, Chair, for giving me the floor, and good morning, everyone. And thanks especially to our two candidates. I think this is a very positive moment for CFS that we have this really healthy debate today, recognizing the importance of CFS and acknowledging the very serious challenges posed. And we wouldn't have this debate without having two very concerned candidates who we can see are listening carefully to all stakeholders. We have heard that both candidates are agreed on the tough challenges that the CFS is facing. And it is fitting that we have this extraordinary response the first time that we have two candidates going for chair of CFS. That brings me to my question, Chair, and it's around communication in particular, and it's linked with the other questions around impact. What more can be done to increase and improve the communication around not just the CFS policy products, but also bringing more attention to the HLPE products? We've seen improvements on communication thanks to you and the Secretariat in the last biennium, but we're still clear that there isn't that impact and that awareness of CFS products, and in particular also the HLPE reports. What more can be done to communicate these better? Thank you, Chair.
Yep. Thank you, European Union. I give the floor to Ambassador Ferrero. You have 4 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair, and I will save 2 for the final round. Well, thank you, Costa Rica, and of course to Poland and Slovenia for your words. And while addressing the issue raised by Costa Rica on the decade of family farming, well, we do believe that the decade of family farming is having an impact in the ground, and a way of setting up multi-stakeholder platforms at the country level, mobilizing those hundreds the dozens of millions of farmers, that is worth being better linked to the CFS. Of course, family farming is at the core of SDG 2.3, and it's at the core of the CFS spirit. But we indeed think that it could be worth exploring a way of bringing the decade of family farming as such, maybe through the chair of the International Steering Committee or the Secretariat, to the CFS as an actor. Well, just to add, and well, actually Spain and other countries, Costa Rica, Dominican Republic, and others have been actually proposing in the Food System Summit an initiative that recognizes the efforts of the decade of family farming. So it's nothing new for us. And on communications on the HLP and CFS policy products, well, first I would like to recognize the progress that during the chairmanship of Mr. Tanawat and the leadership of the Secretariat has been done during the last year. In the last 2 years, it has been clear from the outside, being in capital or overseeing the CFS, that this has been improved. But of course, once again, it can be more can be done at country level. I think that Medi's proposal of having more country-level forum where the policy products can be discussed is worth considering. It's a very good idea. And of course, on the HLP and CFS policy products, I mean, we need to take it even more seriously and make sure, and this also has to do with the interlinkages with the other UN intergovernmental fora, that proactively that the CFS products are indeed approached by all these other intergovernmental fora and taken into account. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Ferrero. Next, Ambassador Moungui, please. You have 4 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Very quickly, let me thank Slovenia and Poland for the stated position. I believe that the chair of Africa Group, who is online, is taking note that the fragile equilibrium that we, as a constituency, we were supporting is becoming really very fragile at this point, whereby when it is the turn of Africa, another region decides to turn that down. We appreciate those statements, and then we'll continue to approach you to make our case to understand that this is the turn of Africa. Now for Costa Rica, you know, the family farming, the decade of family farming, you know how much Africa is involved in the process, and the support that you can receive from our region is definitely guaranteed. So there is nothing we can do here not in support of the decade of the family farming. And if there is something that we can do within the CFS to push that, we will not hesitate. You can be assured. For EU, it's always the same problem with the issue of communication. There is always communication gap. All the discussion that we'll be having about languages, even within FAO and so on, how to translate some of the document in language that are, so that there's not one language which is really like here, we're almost using all of us English. Meanwhile, I could I am expressing myself very well in French if I wanted to, I was given the opportunity to. And Mr. Ferrero would have done so in Spanish, but there's always a dominant language, and we will make sure that we clarify within the processes how we can have a balanced discussion in the language, probably how it goes. And those reports of the HLPE, I think how to deal with those reports at country level, that's why I suggested that we have to discuss with the RBA if there is no possibility to create together something, it is in our thinking again, something at country level or the text base to see how we can start working on the CFS product at country level. Thank you, Chair.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you very much. The floor is yours. Andre, can you hear us? Andre. You have to unmute, Andre. You need to unmute.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay.
Now, right now we're starting to elect a candidate in a very delicate time in our lives, given the position on global governance across the world. And this decision is a big occurrence which deserves a big debate that we're having today. Once again, we would like to say that the internal process of the CFS have to be as participative as possible. It's fundamental to guarantee that we have proper participation in all sessions and ensure that we have sessions like today for our different time zones, which has to be kept in mind too. We have two questions, one for the candidates and then one for each. For the two candidates, we believe the CFS is currently discussing whether and how to respond, on the one hand, to the challenges posed on food security and nutrition in the aftermath of COVID-19 and the related economic crises on one hand, but on the other side,
Andre,
we have the outcomes of the SS.
Andre, can you hear me?
Yes,
Andre,
can you hear me?
Maybe you
speaking.
You ask question first, and then interpretation will come later, because now Spanish and English interpretation is not clear for our candidate. Maybe you talk in Spanish first, and then interpreters can give interpretations afterwards. Yeah, please, Andre, CSM, please.
Yes.
Unmute, please. CSM.
Na pergunta para los dos candidatos, el CCA está debatiendo actualmente si debe responder y cómo, por un lado, a los retos que se plantean en materia de seguridad alimentaria y nutrición tras la COVID-19 y las crisis económicas conexas a ella. Por otro lado, a los resultados de las cumbres de sistemas alimentarios. Ambas cuestiones no están incluidas en el PTPA 2020-2023. ¿A cuál de los dos daría usted prioridad? Para la sociedad civil y pueblos indígenas, la respuesta global coordinada a la COVID-19 es prioridad urgente. Lo bien ustedes también como una prioridad del CSA. Para el señor Moungui, el señor comentó sobre el tema de la pérdida de la inclusividad del CSA. ¿A qué se refiere? Una sesión específica extraordinaria del CSA es una buena oportunidad para establecer las prioridades de acción conjunta del CSA. Y para el señor Ferrero, en su opinión, ¿cuáles son las limitaciones y retos más urgentes en el funcionamiento del CSA? O sea, ¿qué se debe hacer para que los procesos de CSA sean efectivamente participativos e inclusivos? Muchas gracias.
Now, interpretation, please.
Interpretation. CFS is currently discussing whether and how to respond, on the one hand, to the challenges posed on food security and nutrition in the aftermath of COVID-19 and in the related economic crisis. On the other hand, to the outcomes of FSS, the Food Security Summit. Both issues are not included in MyPow 2020 to 2023. Which of the two would you give priority to? And more specifically to Mr. Ferrero, in your view, what are the most urgent limitations and challenges in the way the CFS is operating that need to be addressed? Thank you.
Thank you, CSM, for your questions. Next, PSM.
Thank you, and good morning. Good morning, all chair and candidates. I had two questions. I'll bring it down to one because I appreciate the question that India asked on impact. The second question, and before I ask that second question, I would just like that Ambassador Ferrero, during his response, and when he was talking with in response to Germany, talked about improved functioning of the mechanisms. And I would like Ambassador Ferrero just to clarify what he was referring to. My question is the following. The candidates have stressed today CFS's multi-stakeholder nature. This is inclusiveness and diversity. And PSM, as a long-standing partner since the reform, welcomes that. During the Food Systems Summit, we've also been discussing the science policy interface and the importance of HLP and its products, again, emphasized again this morning. And we've recently had the excellent press conference before the Food Systems Summit to introduce the new HLPE Steering Committee. But in acknowledgement of what the CFS is, as it's been described today again, is this not the appropriate time to reconsider the HLPE Steering Committee selection process, which currently is carried out by an ad hoc committee of the Rome-based agencies, CGIAR and biodiversity, and the civil society mechanism, but not the private sector mechanism? We'd like your thoughts on this. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, candidates.
Thank you very much, PSM, for your comments and question. Next, I give the floor to Ambassador Moungui from Cameroon, and followed by Ambassador Ferrero from Spain. Please, you have 3 or 4 minutes. Yeah.
Thank you very much, CSM, and then for bringing up again the issue of inclusiveness. And I believe that having witnessed many discussions within the CFS, and I know how frustrated some of the constituencies and stakeholders, some of them were, the frustration that they were living. And I believe this is more than enough time to reduce the sense of being left behind within the CFS. And that's why we intend to have the issue of inclusiveness part of our building block. And thank you, CSM, for bringing that. And for PSM, I think, yes, the committee should, again, try to revive itself I don't know whether I should speak of another kind of what happened in 2008 and 2009. But I think there are things that we need to do. We have 16 products of the HLP, and how can we discuss the issue of shelving a little bit the work of HLP and prioritize implementation of their product? This is a question that is still troubling me. I don't have yet an answer, but I think we should involve the membership to discuss that. The HLP reports are already many, and we need implementation on the ground. It's still something that we have to discuss among the membership. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Ambassador Ferrero, please.
Thank you very much to the civil society mechanism and the private sector mechanism for raising these questions. Well, the first on the COVID-19 response versus the Food System Summit results, and which would be the priority. Well first, I would say, well, we are my country is part of the group of the committed countries that have been actually working on proposing the CFS to take into account into its program of work the impact and the response to the COVID-19 pandemic during these last months, last year and a half. You all know that. And well, however, the membership has considered for different reasons that, including some structural issues related to financing and to the overload of the agenda, that this could be better addressed during the plenary as a cross-cutting issue that we fully respect. But my point is that, well, I think it's not either or. I think that, well, first, that the Food Systems Summit results are not to be implemented by the CFS. The CFS has its mandate, has its role. It has been recognized by the Food Systems Summit as the most important and an essential platform for food security and nutrition in the context of food systems, and that it has its own mandate and its own mission. But what it needs to do is to take the momentum of the Food Systems Summit, try, of course, to be responsive to all the process that it has been carried out, and make our best, if a membership decides to establish the linkages with the and offering the space of the CFS as well to keep alive this momentum and keep it growing, engaging with multiple national dialogues that has been triggered by the Food Systems Summit, initiatives and coalitions, etc. In terms of the balance or sorry, the way in which the mechanisms can be improved, or the limitations and challenges more urgent for the functioning of inclusiveness. Well, inclusiveness is one of as I said, one of the most added value of the CFS to the world, and that is our foundational value, at least since 2010. If I would say which are the key performance indicators that should have been set up originally in 2009 to track the progress of the CFS, it would have been the involvement of the private sector and civil society in our deliberations and in our plenaries and in our dynamics. This grew exponentially thanks to the work of the private sector and civil society mechanisms, and this is to be recognized and to be valued to the whole extent. When we talk about impact in the ground, most of the impact or much of the impact are already being carried by the private sector and civil society organizations in the ground through their networks and through the capillarity they provide. Having said this, well, indeed, I think we need to reflect on the ways of rebuilding trust after some difficult years, and the ways to better balance what the participatory processes require, which is time, patience, dialogue, and flexibility, also with the capacities of many member states that are sometimes overwhelmed with these lengthy and complex processes. And finally, to the question about the selection committee of the high-level panel of experts, well, I think I would propose, actually, of course, I would always propose to the membership. It's not that I would be proposing alternative priorities, I would be proposing to the plenary if elected and to the Bureau to review as well how the HLP could be improved, including in the selection process and other features. Thank you, Chair.
Yep. Thank you very much for both candidates for joining us the meeting today and also presenting your visions and also having an opportunities to have our question and answers with our members and also others constituencies of the CFS this morning. And also I wish you all the best and also wish you well for the fair elections, which actually all of you have heard or have learned already that the elections will be organized on 14th of October in the mornings, and it's you have to come to FAO as well. Regarding to the modality of the elections, I will invite FAO senior officers. I think Mr. Ilya Bethlehem, the deputy directors, who will join us as well. But anyway, there are some questions from the floor. I would like to ask our CFS secretary to give the clarifications to the members. Yep. Secretary, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everyone, especially the two candidates. I put something in the chat to answer a question that was raised by Argentina, and in fact, a second question from Argentina regarding Spanish candidacy, I think is clear from both the legal office of FAO, the note which is in our working space, and the core issue at concern. So that was the only question I have responded to in chat for those interested. And then on modalities, we will follow with a Bureau meeting, and the senior FAO officer who is planning and working with us on the voting modalities will join us in the Bureau to answer more specific questions about timing and details, since we are far behind schedule. If I've missed a specific question, certainly can follow up, as can the team. And if there are any other questions from the candidates, I'd recommend sending those to us in writing. We will present those to the candidates for their response. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, CFS Secretary. And also at last, thank you for both candidates, and also wish you all the best for the elections. And now the first segment of the CFS Bureau meeting this morning is adjourned. And also for the Bureau members and alternate, we will continue with the regular sessions of the Bureau meetings. We will have a break for 5 minutes for our technicians to switch to another Zoom link. And thank you very much for joining us. And also thank you for our members and other stakeholders and constituencies who are participating in this meeting. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.